Good morning. So anything interesting going on with anybody? Oh, I love that echo. Sounds like this is what God sounds like, I think. Hello, 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 hello. Trying to get rid of an echo. We're relatively new at this, as you might know. So we'll get going as we did a test run and it worked or it didn't work. Anybody know any good jokes? Okay, I do. This is one of them. It's freezing in here at the Congregational Church of Patchogue. It's happening a lot, you know. We just can't get the heat going, and when we do, we can't keep it going. So anyway, that's my complaint for today. Do you have any complaints about what's going on in the world right now? No? Okay, good. Let's keep it that way. Well, there's three of us keeping social distance to the best of our ability here and providing this service for you as long as we can. If we cannot do this from now on into the future, then we will be in our respective homes and we'll be doing this over Zoom. So for right now, Facebook Live, and then we'll go to Zoom, or maybe we'll see what happens from now on in. But thank you for joining us this morning. Oh, yeah, and if you get a chance, go on the website for the church, which is churchonmainstreet.org, churchonmainstreet.org. And if you want to help us out, we obviously have no income like a lot of people, and we're trying to pull this off. Not having any heat saves us some money, that's for sure. And we would really very much appreciate that. Obviously, the basket is not going to be passed for at least 8 weeks, and that's a concern for us. Okay, and the way you can get that is if you emailed office at Church on Main Street, spelled out S-T-R-E-E-T, office at churchonmainstreet.org, then we'll be able to get your email address in case we go over to Zoom, and we'll send you an invitation for when we're going to be doing that. Okay, now, I don't know if you've noticed, but this is not really like a really nice Christmas season with the first snow. This is like all hell breaking loose in spring. So we've changed a bit in this world. Have you noticed? But it's also the time of Lent. In the Christian tradition, Lent is like, in the Jewish tradition, Yom Kippur. It's a time of atonement and introspection, and it happens every year for over 2,000 years. And the whole point of that is that we can be out there party hardy, having a good time, wondering what we're going to do with this and making money, and then all of a sudden something like this comes upon us, and we go, whoa, did I do anything wrong? I have people texting me, is this God punishing us for our sins? People are freaking out, understandably. And in a way, it's really interesting, isn't it, that this is happening in the world during this season of Lent, a time of saying, so you think you know what's going on, do you? Well, let's look about what's really real, what really matters in life. And I know we're all asking those questions. If not, we're dead drunk. Those are the only two options I can think of. So in this time of introspection, before we get into the Serenity Prayer Part 1, I want to do something about Lent, which is called, if we were in a sanctuary and life was normal, we would have a banner over here, and we would have put different things on the banner. First Sunday of Lent, we would have put the symbol of the towel and basin. Remember, Jesus invited dinner guests over. Imagine you go over to somebody's house for dinner, and they say, take off your shoes. And the host or hostess washes your feet with a towel and dries them off. Wow, it's just like this radical hospitality. So that's the first week. On the second Sunday of Lent, we put up the symbol of the rooster. The same people who went to the party and Jesus washed their feet, saying, when the what hit the fan, they say, I don't know this guy. Jesus, never heard of him. Jesus, you mean Jesus? I don't know anybody named Jesus. I never met him. And then Peter denies 3 times. You'll deny me 3 times before the rooster crows in the morning. And that's exactly what happens. So we go from radical hospitality to abject denial in 1 week. The third Sunday of Lent, if there was a banner over here, we would put a symbol of a gavel representing Jesus' trial before Pontius Pilate. They say you're the king of the Jews. Are you? Well, you said king of the Jews. I never said those words. They came out of your mouth, Your Honor. So there's the trial. So this is happening all so fast during Holy Week. On the fourth Sunday of Lent, last Sunday, we added the symbol of the dice. The ancient equivalent of that would be lots. They drew lots, like the short stick. So let's say it was the dice. Okay, and they're rolling the dice. And whoever gets the short stick gets the guy's clothes when he finally kicks the bucket. The one up there on the cross, the wannabe king of the Jews dude who's almost dead already. As soon as he kicks the bucket, you get his clothes if you roll the dice and you get the number. Oy vey. So heavy stuff this Lent. But we also know, what they didn't know, is that the resurrection is coming on Easter. But before you get to a resurrection, you always have to go through the crucifixion. That means before you get healed, you have to be wounded. Otherwise, what's to heal? That is the metaphor that is so perfect for what's going on in the world right now, seen through the eyes of these crazy Christians who still go to church on Sunday morning when everybody else knows that you should go to brunch. So here we are on the fifth Sunday of Lent. And I would put the banner of the crown and thorns over here on the banner if it was there, the symbol of the crown and thorns, representing how the Roman soldiers who served Pilate in the court, the Roman soldiers who served the government and the religious authorities, made a crown of thorns. King of the Jews, boy. Hey, king, man. Here. And they put a crown on his head and push it down, and the crowns go into his skull, and little bits of blood come down, and they mockingly call him King of the Jews. Thus began the torture and humiliation of Jesus as they led him outside the gate and nailed him to a cross. Good morning. While such vulgarity and cruelty is hard to imagine, or is it? Is it hard to imagine such vulgarity and cruelty at this time of the year? I don't think so. While it's hard to imagine it, perhaps, and it's getting less hard to imagine it as we proceed into this virus season, we dare not forget that it's not just us who are being persecuted by this punishing God or whatever we see, or the people who are stupid enough to be on the beach in Daytona and then carrying the influenza, if we were so lucky, the coronavirus back into their communities. Let us not forget that we also denied human rights to indigenous Indians. We denied human rights to African slaves. We denied human rights to the Jews of the Holocaust in Europe. And now we're saying, I hear, understandably in a way, that you have the state police in Rhode Island, by the governor's order, going to where they know these New Yorkers are hiding out to try to stay healthy, knocking on the door and reminding them, we know where you are. We know who you are. We're the state police, and you stay in that house for 14 days. Now, of course they're going to do that. They're scared too, but isn't this interesting? Oh, we would never do that. Let's go to the party hardy down on the Daytona Beach. Then we go into I don't know who this person is. Then we go into, let's find somebody to blame. It's the New Yorkers, wouldn't you know it? Don't let them leave the state. Quarantine Connecticut. So let the crown of thorns and the cross on which Jesus died be symbols as we learn through this. This is lovely, isn't it? Main Street's completely dead, but there's a siren. We're racing down the street on why? Turn off your siren. There's nobody out there. There's not a single car, single human being, except for the homeless who are sleeping and eating on our porch right now. Let the crown of thorns, as we close this little meditation on Lent, and we'll get in next to a song, and then we'll move into the Serenity prayer. Let the crown of thorns and the cross on which Jesus died be symbols of what we vow we will never let happen again to anyone, because we are going to learn from this. We are going to grow from this. We are going to be stronger physically, emotionally, and spiritually as a result of this coronavirus. That seems to be kicking our butt in the meantime. But I certainly have learned already. I certainly have become strengthened. And now let's hear from Kathleen Gubatosi, who was silly enough to risk her life to come in here into the sanctuary and sing a song for us, as long as she doesn't get within 8 feet of me, or else I'm going to knock her to the ground and call the governor of Rhode Island. Kathleen, come on, get us out of this mess. See you in a minute. Thank you, Kathleen. So, some of y'all never go to church and you don't know what happens in church. Usually what happens is there's a scripture reading and there's a sermon. So we're going to have a little tiny scripture reading, which I think is really kind of interesting in that it's so appropriate. It's 2 sentences, 2 verses from the Gospel according to Matthew. And I want to tell you first the setting. In Jerusalem, if you go to Jerusalem, in Israel, Palestine, you will see that there are different gates. Because, of course, the ancient cities, they would like dump molten lead on your head if you didn't have a passport or something. And so you go through the gates. And some of these gates are really huge. And then there's this one little gate, and it's known as the narrow gate. And I thought, what kind of a gate is that? It almost looks like the entrance to a doghouse. And yet, there it is, the gate. It's called the narrow gate. So in Matthew, we hear something that says, enter through the narrow gate. For the gate is wide and the road is easy that leads to destruction. And there are many who seek an easy way out. But the road to God, the road to Jerusalem, I would say in this instance, is hard. And the gate is narrow that leads to life. And there are much fewer people there seeking to find it. What's wrong with the narrow gate? Well, the problem with the narrow gate is you can't get all of your toilet paper through it. You can't get your backpack full of passwords and hand sanitizers and canned soup and diapers or whatever you're hoarding. We're all hoarding something. I'm hoarding fear. It's ridiculous. You know, I went to feed the swans yesterday on a walk. I went and I took some bread to the swans. The swan attacked me. I was like, how can you be attacked by a swan? I'm trying to give it some bread. You know, I'll never give that thing bread again. But I guess they're kind of cranky. Maybe the swans are hoarding right now too. Give me mine, and then I'll be okay. If only I have enough money. If only I get out of stocks and into bonds. If I only get out of Dodge and get up north. If maybe I go to Boise, Idaho. There's one place. I don't think there's anybody getting sick in Boise. I don't even know where it is. Nobody even knows where it is. Somebody else, Kathleen knows where it is. The Serenity Prayer, Part 1. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Or, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. I see it today differently than I did before. It's like, there's so much stuff I can't change, God, and I'm holding on, I'm trying to fight it, I'm trying to manipulate it, it's not working. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. A little bit about the Serenity Prayer. The Serenity Prayer was conceived in a little stone cottage in Heath, Massachusetts, where the author was hiding out from the coronavirus and being hunted down by the state police of Massachusetts. Not really. But it was 1932. This guy's name was Reinhold Niebuhr. He was a scholar and a theologian and a professor at my alma mater, Union Theological Seminary in New York. So 1932, somewhere around in there, Reinhold Niebuhr writes the Serenity Prayer. It was printed on cards and distributed to the troops of the USO or the National Guard or the Army or Air Force or whoever's going to save us from this now. National Guard being called out everywhere. Okay, so they distributed the Serenity Prayer to put in the pocket of these soldiers. The soldiers who were called into fighting, by the way, were being called to stay on our couches and we're having a hard time dealing with it. You know, oh my God, the stress. So that's what they would do. And they would comfort them in times of conflict, in times of war, like this invisible enemy war, the conflict we're in now. The Serenity Prayer was also circulated by the National Council of Churches because it begins with the word God, and it's comforting to spiritual seekers, religious persons. And the Serenity Prayer became even more and better known after being adopted by Alcoholics Anonymous in 1941, about 10 years after it was written, when an early AA member saw it in a New York newspaper obituary. With what's going on in this world and in this person, I could certainly use some serenity right now. How about you? Where do you find serenity? Where do you find serenity in a time like this? I find it various places, but one of which, in this era of social distancing, I find it by walking the beach and watching the tide coming in. Once I did this, and the beach was isolated like everything else, except for one other man who was standing on the shore yelling at the tide as it was coming in. You can imagine how I socially distanced from this dude. He's screaming at the tide, and he's saying, "Stop right there. 1 inch closer and you're going to get it. Just try me. Just try me. Now back off. Back off. Keep your distance. Social distance, tide. Ocean, stay away from me." I went, oh my God. Of course, I'm updating what he was saying a little bit for today's circumstances, but this man was clearly disturbed. So I walked as far away from him and the shore as I possibly could as I continued my walk, thinking, wouldn't you know it, I'm trying to get a little bit of serenity, and I run into Mr. McNuts right there on the beach, screaming at the tide, daring it to come in. So the next day, I think I can try again. So I went back, longing once again for the serenity that the beach provides me sometimes. Not when this guy, Mr. McNuts is standing on the shore. And once again, the beach was isolated. Except for one man. The same guy who was there the previous day. And once again, he was standing on the shore. But this time the tide was going out. And he was yelling, "Please don't go. I'll do anything. Don't leave me. Please, if you stay, please, I'll do anything." His threats and taunts, however, could not stop the tide from coming in, just as his pitiful pleading could not stop the tide from going out. He was powerless over the tide, and yet he lacked the serenity to accept the things he could not change, as he stood like a madman, railing against the inevitable, railing against life, and demanding that nature change its course to suit his demands and his desires. I had come to the seashore seeking serenity. He had come seeking change. I did not find serenity, and he did not find change. He allowed the tide to disturb his day, and I allowed the tide to disturb mine, just like I'm allowing Kathleen Gubitosi's cell phone volume to disturb me as I'm hearing her instead of hearing myself. So I'm going to repeat that. I had come to the seashore seeking serenity. Stop it. I had come to the seashore seeking serenity, like I'm trying to seek serenity right now, Kathleen. I had come, what is she doing? Okay, we'll find that out later. Serenity. Om Namaste. Better. I had come to the seashore seeking serenity. He had come to the seashore seeking change. Don't go out. Don't come in. Keep your distance. I did not find serenity, and he did not find change. He allowed the tide to disturb his day, and I allowed the tide and Kathleen Gubitosi to disturb my day. How many times do we suffer because we lack the willingness to accept the things we cannot change? Like trees refusing to bend with the wind, we snap. Like a tide rising against our refusal to accept the change that life brings, we lose the ability to experience the serenity that acceptance brings. The man on the shore felt deeply defeated by the tide, but defeat, rightly accepted, need not be defeat at all. In not getting the power and control we want, we may gain the acceptance we need. In not getting the power and control we want over our fears, over a virus, over uncertainty, we can also, in that same instance, gain acceptance that we need. If we can learn to accept what's going on now, that acceptance will serve us well in whatever we face going forward, as a lesson we have learned from this COVID-19. The blessing of the Serenity Prayer comes by accepting life on life's terms. It comes by accepting, not denying, our present circumstances as they are, and by accepting ourselves as we are, not as we wish ourselves to be, and by accepting others as they are, not as we think they should be. By accepting our weaknesses, our unrealistic expectations, our outrageous obsessive thoughts, our fears that seem overwhelming, new strengths can be developed and discovered. Acceptance of people, places, and things that we cannot force to conform to our desires may feel like defeat, but acceptance eventually will become the foundation upon which sustainable change can last. Acceptance is not the opposite of control, is the opposite of control and rebellion and the force of will. Now, as we draw to the close of this, notice, please, that this prayer does not say, I grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Wouldn't it be so nice if we are all our own little God in a glove compartment in a car? Just open it up. God in a box. Wouldn't it be nice that I could grant myself the serenity to accept the things I cannot change? But it says in this prayer, God, grant me. In other words, I can't do it. I've tried. I've tried and tried. I'm overcome with fear sometimes. There's people on Facebook, it's starting to get creepy. And it can get more so as we proceed into this virus. Insomnia, drinking too much, a million different things. It says, God grant me. The serenity prayer is a petition to God. In accepting what we cannot do, we create an opening where God can gain access to our soul and do for us what we cannot do for ourselves. What most of us know as the serenity prayer is actually only a portion of the prayer as originally written. And so we're going to hear the prayer in one of its earliest forms, written again by Reinhold Niebuhr. Here's the longer version than the 4 verses we hear. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardships as the pathway to peace, taking as he did, he's talking about Jesus the Christ, taking as he did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever in the next.
Abide with me, fast falls the eventide. The darkness deepens, Lord, with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless, oh, abide with me. Swift to its close ebbs out life's little day. Earth's joys grow dim, its glories fade away. Change and decay in all around I see. O thou who changest not, abide with me. I need thy presence every passing hour. tempter's power, who like thyself my guide and stay can be. Through cloud and sunshine, Lord, abide with me. I fear no foe, with thee at hand to bless. Ills have no weight, and fears no bitterness. Where is death's sting? Where grave thy victory? I triumph still if thou abide with me.
Well, thank you, Craig Coyle. If some of you are Facebook friends, I would assume you are because we're on Facebook Live now, you would know that I had broadcast that Craig was going to be singing Let It Be. But, you know, the market got hurt badly in this whole thing. And the rumor is Paul McCartney really needs the money. So we would be copyright infringing if we did that. And truth be told, the right thing to do is to pay royalties when you sing songs like that. But we didn't pull it off. So abide with me is a nice message, and we can also let it be in our souls. Let us say, using whatever words we choose, like trespasses, debts, whatever you choose. Let us say it aloud where you are, even if your family will think you're nuts, or if a swan attacks you while you're doing it. Let's speak, pray together aloud. The prayer that our faith tradition tells us that Jesus himself taught to the original disciples as we pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. In the Christian faith tradition, next Sunday is going to be Palm Sunday. Waving palms. I miss them so much I could cry. I really do. It's terrible. This place would be up with all the children waving palms and being excited, and all of the parents and others would have brought in little bunny Easter egg shaped cakes and stuff. Well, we're going to have to hold on that, but I'll take the cake once this thing passes. Palm Sunday cake in the middle of July is sounding pretty good to me. So we are going until next Sunday at 10. God willing, may the light of God that is mindless of cloudy days, may the light of God shine down upon you and out from within you and bring you some peace, serenity, and bring peace and serenity to those whose lives you touch. And now let us recite together as we close the first 4 lines of the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Next week, courage to change the things I can. Toodaloo, stay healthy.